Whenever you're ready, Steve.
Oh, you actually want me to do it? Oh, okay, I see. All right. I thought I had plenty of time. I thought I could wait. Hello, I'm Steve,
And I'm Rebecca.
and we're here today with Levi from Loot the Body.
Hello.
Levi, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us today, and thank you for letting us use your Flumph voice for the Tiny Taverns. We're really excited about that. I have been looking into different bands and people as we've gone through for Tiny Taverns, and you were one of the first ones that we were suggested by our friends over at Bardic Mystery Tour.
Yeah, they're like one of the first people that sort of, I guess, found me or found my music and sent me such nice feedback. Which, as you guys probably know, that's pretty much all there is, And there certainly isn't money. So, like all the, all the connections and the nice words that people say and things like that, it really means a lot. So they've been very generous with me.
They were fantastic with us. I absolutely adored doing the interview with them. They were very patient. It was our very first one, too. We hadn't done any remote broadcastings, and we did it with them, and it was wonderful. They were just so nice.
Yeah, genuinely great people.
Do you have any other suggestions for other people in the music industry?
So I'll have to send you guys some links for, I'm like, I straddle the sort of the gaming world, and also through some connections, I sort of belong to, I don't know, like this, I guess it's called doom metal, or like sludge metal, or it's like this heavy metal scene with some bands that also write music that is inspired by D&D. And although I love hard rock, and certainly maybe some people would listen to some of my songs and go, that's metal. I, heavy metal bands would be like, no, dude, you're not metal. But regardless, there's a band called Bog Wizard that have been very cool, or a band called Dungeon Crawler, or Throne of Iron, and they're people that play D&D, and their songs are inspired by D&D. To be honest with you, that's in a lot of ways what, like, the granddaddy metal bands like Iron Maiden and bands like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A lot of it is just so much in that wheelhouse that even if they weren't playing D&D or weren't playing any RPGs, the inspirations from Appendix N, or Pulp, or even B movies, it's the Venn diagram is pretty much a circle. It's the overlap is pretty complete with a lot of that inspiration.
It is nice seeing people use their hobbies and then put them into their music. I absolutely adore it. I found a couple heavy metal D&D bands, and I'm nervous to bring them on. Because as excited as I am about that, I'm always worried about just jarring someone else and being, no, I don't want to ever hear this again. I can't be a part of this podcast anymore. I'm done.
Yeah, you have to like that style, I think. It's like same with dungeon synth in a way. That, which is a whole other genre of music that's a lot of it is very D&D inspired. If you're not into that vintage synth, or even some people would say, oh, that's cheesy synth sounds, but if you're into that, that's like your whole world, and so it's really, I think, first and foremost, it can't just be about D&D. That can't just be enough. It's got to really stand on its own in musical terms, I think.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Now let's stop talking about other people and talk about the person who actually matters here, which is you. So, just from our list of stupidly generic questions, what got you started in music? Where did it begin?
So like a lot of, I think around the time when you get hobbies in middle school or high school, music became mine. Like a lot of kids, if you get into sports, maybe that's around the time when you do it. And for me, for me, ground zero was Back to the Future, watching Marty play the guitar, even though he wasn't a real guitar player. Just watching that scene when he plays the guitar in that movie just blew my mind. It was like, oh, that's what playing music is like. It just crystallized it for me. That's what that's about, and the fact that it's a thing that, I don't know, like, it's a thing that people do. It's a thing that you can do if you want to, So that really got me going. And I grew up listening to my dad's records, so classic 60s psychedelic rock, and I still love that stuff. But that was the point, I think, when I realized, oh, I could do that. And so yeah, I begged and begged for a guitar and started playing. And all through high school, I played in bands, and even in college. And after college, I was always playing in one band or another. And I've always been a utility guy, like keyboards or bass or guitar, or background vocals, never really the front man,
Oh,
but
goodness.
always involved in it. And then and so I did that pretty much, I don't know, even, I got married, had kids, and then I was still in a band, which, is as pathetic as it sounds. And then, the band that I was in, we went on tour, and it broke us, just like broke our spirit. And then the band just sort of folded. And I thought, okay, well, I had a good
Oh, yeah,
run.
no.
That was a great run. And that was sort of it. I thought, okay, well, got to figure out something else to do. And at that time, I thought, well, I've always been a songwriter. I've always been involved in the songwriting, even if I wasn't the lead person. I thought, well, I'm just going to make like a solo album. And I wrote songs and I liked them, but at the end of the day, I had this dread that I was going to release them to absolute silence. Like, who cares? And I couldn't even say, why should anyone care? Like it feels good to make music. It feels good to create it. But when you guys know this, like, there's all this fun around creation. I'd say maybe that's around 70%. And then the last 30% is the slog,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, my
So,
God. Yes, absolutely.
yes. Yeah. So that's where I got, like, I wrote an album, I recorded it. I was working through the slog, and I just hit the big old wall of who cares. So I dropped it because I thought, if I couldn't really answer that question. Like, why should anybody listen to this? Why should like, I got my enjoyment writing those songs, but why should anybody care? So then I sort of hit a lull, and some time passed, and, I got really, I wasn't a gamer when I was a kid. I do have my brother played, which meant that I couldn't play because he's my older brother, and there's no way that I would
Naturally.
be,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, us youngest are always kept out of things.
I was going to say, as the
yes.
oldest, I don't feel that at all.
Yeah. So my brother played, and I do have this memory. So I was born in like the early 70s, so I was in middle school, like in the 80s. And I do remember binders of like illicitly photocopied or mimeographed D&D books, because nobody could afford or own them. But if a friend had them, that meant that you could and they would be interspersed with, a grid paper of a dungeon that someone made. And so the artifacts of it were fascinating. But whenever I tried to learn it, it was just straight up math. It felt like somebody was trying to fool me into learning math, like, this is all math. And I didn't have like that group, the cohort of people to guide me through it, to say, no, 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 this is what it's really about. So I didn't play, but all along I've loved, Tolkien and Heinlein, and all the sort of classic pulp sci-fi and fantasy authors, Jack Vance and Fritz Leiber, people like that. And then at some point, I noticed that all of a sudden you could watch people play D&D online. And that clicked for me, because finally I was like, that's what that is. Like, that's what D&D is. And I watched enough different games online and streaming that I thought, there isn't even one way to do it. Like, there's so many ways to do it. There is no such thing as D&D. Like,
No,
the
no.
variety by table is so great, so that really got me into just teaching myself. And I really got into Dungeon Crawl Classics. I really dug just the sensibility of that,
Oh,
because it
Dungeon Crawl
is,
Classics is nice. Yeah, that was a good one.
it's very much like that kid next to you in school who would draw stuff. It's got, for me, like, being a fan of hard rock. It's those album covers that you'd be like, oh, look at that. You know, that's what Dungeon Crawl Classics has. So I started teaching myself how to play games, and then I started up a game, and I started DMing because I started sort of corralling my friends into playing. So, you know, that sort of started to fill the gap after music sort of stopped being my main thing, you know, and I really got a kick out of it. I know this is a really long story. I'm about to
No,
get to
you're
the end
fine.
of
No,
it.
absolutely. I'm enthralled. No, this is.
It
It seems like you and D&D have had this just like a relationship where you're just so close the whole time, two ships passing in the night, and
yeah,
finally you're going to get
yeah,
together. I can't wait to hear about it.
yeah,
Best
and
rom-com ever.
right. And so my son, who is all my kids, you know, really talented, and my son is very musical, and I was trying to get him into like songwriting, you know, because he showed interest. I said, you should just, what you need to do is you need to write like a bunch of bad songs, you know, and then when you're done with it, write the next one. You need to get all the bad songs out of your system. You know, that's how you're going to improve. And don't even stop to judge the song you just wrote. Write another one. I said, look, why don't we do it together? Let's write a song a week. We'll each write a song a week. And I'll write. At that time, my head was so full of D&D that I said, I'll just write something about D&D, you know, because it's better than sitting down and you know, and writing the Levi Saves the World dad rock anthem that nobody wants to hear, you know? So I wrote down at the tavern. That just sort of song just popped out, and it was very much informed by my game and by the stuff that I'd read, and the idea of a bard singing that was very, you know, it's very familiar. So I thought, okay, something a bard would sing. But then the songs kept coming. You know, they just kept coming, and they kept coming, and I was enjoying it. And the difference was at the end of it, I thought, you know, I bet you one person would like to hear this song, you know, and that's sort of why I go back to the importance of having people out there who say nice things about your stuff, and the importance of saying nice things about people's stuff, because it's such a huge difference. It's so like it having a scene, being a part of a scene, having peers, having people sort of who share that creative space with and who get it, you know, is so important. And I discovered it as I started writing these songs. You know, I made a YouTube channel because the other thing I'm really into is video, you know, and I don't claim to be great at any of this stuff, but I do have this itch to do it, you know, and I have been doing long enough that I forgive myself for things that are crappy. You know, I just sort of move on. And it doesn't keep me from releasing it. You know, I'm like, you know, I had this sort of epiphany where I thought, well, I'm not a lead singer, but if I don't sing these songs, they're not going to be realized, right? Like I'm not the best instrumentalist, but if I don't play these instruments, these songs aren't going to happen, you know? And so I forgave myself for that. I said, just do it, just go for it. And the songs kept coming, and I made videos for them. I made a YouTube channel, started uploading them, and people started finding them and leaving me really nice comments. And it really just fueled, you know, the inspiration. And so I wrote, I started writing these songs, and that became my first album, which was Random Encounters. And it was really just, you know, as I was learning about D&D, or I would have a chord progression or whatever it was like almost like I discovered a lake with a bunch of fish. And anytime I dropped a hook, I knew I was going to pull something up, because there was such inspiration there for me, you know. And so far, I'm still there, you know, which is good for me.
I think that is why I've really enjoyed doing tiny taverns and having different artists on, because the inspiration that people get, like we interviewed a gentleman previously. His name is Jake Lionheart, and he does raps, about D&D, and has been in the D&D scene for all of I'd say almost a year at this point in time. Yeah, it hasn't even been that long, I don't think, but hadn't played much. And now we have you, who's been around for longer and had all of that inspiration as a child, and we're again tentatively around it. It's just really interesting to see how many different people take different things from it. Mm-hmm. And it is, like you said, it is what you want it to be. It's so nice.
So I have a question.
Yep.
Your son, how upset is he that you now have a following from this song of the week thing? I would be so salty.
No, he's great about. He's the one that tells me, "Dad, you got a new follower or whatever." You know, he's really like
Aww.
he tells me, "This is what you should do, Dad. This is what you know." He's sort of like he's my social media mogul. Um, um, yeah, he's very, and I'm still pushing him to release something and to make something and to put music out there, and he's working his way to it. But yeah, he's very supportive. They do like roll their eyes a little bit also, you know, but that's healthy, I think. You know,
Yeah.
if yeah, you have to think that your parents are dorks.
A little bit cringy, at least.
Well,
Yeah,
I
for
think so.
sure.
Yeah, I was
For
going to
sure.
say, I think everyone should feel that about their parents.
Yeah.
I think that's natural.
Yeah,
Entirely.
it's healthy. I think it's the separation that has to happen, you know.
I
You
agree with that.
can't like your
Sometimes
parents
when
too
you're like
much.
too close
Yeah.
to your parents, yeah, that makes me a little uncomfortable. I'm like, what's going on there?
Yeah, I'd be like, are you ever going to be able to leave home? You know, like I think that cringiness is what propels you to be an independent adult. It's like
Oh,
I need to
yeah,
leave these people. Yeah. If I hear my dad sing one more song about D&D, I'm going to lose it, you know. Um yeah, for sure.
So you said in your story that you played the I'm sorry, the guitar, the
Mhm.
keyboard, the bass. Do you play any other instruments? I know you did backup
Um
vocals as well.
yeah, I do. I play all the instruments and the drums I program, and but um for so I put out that Random Encounters album, and then the second one, the one on the Barrier Peaks. I
Barry
actually
Peak
had a
Songbook.
yes, I had a friend play drums on that one, which I was really fortunate to be able to have that because I think it just took it to another level. Like I was, and how that sort of came about. I was while I was writing the random encounter songs, I was devouring these old modules, and when I read, you know, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, I was just blown away by it. I was like, oh my god, this is like Space 1999, or this is like, you know, the thing I love about it is the technology is so wonderfully crappy. Like all the computers are just these old 1980s terminals. You know, it's so great. It's like the first Battlestar Galactica, or it's like, you know, it's like War Games or something. It's just wonderfully dated. Um, and so I found that I had some songs coming out that were you know, that were inspired by that, and so I started setting them aside. And so I was writing them at the same time, but every once in a while, a Barrier Peak one would come out, and I would sort of, and I thought about it like, and the creative process I think is for this is very much like a DM prepping for a session. You know, if you read a module, you're gonna be like, oh, that encounter, I'm gonna do this, or this is how I'm gonna role play that mind flayer, or, you know, or this is how the voice of this character is going to be. Oh, I can't wait until they get here or they do that. And that little secret that you have as a DM, that's pretty much my songwriting process. You know, it's like the Flumph thing. You know, like when I started reading up on the Flumph and everything, I thought this is so psychedelic. Like this guy is, you know, the gas, you know, and all. It's like he's like it's like a cloud of pot or a cloud of, you know, and he's so mellow, he's so gentle, and he's, you know, and he's like, I don't know, just real groovy, you know. And so it got me thinking, and that's how that song came out. And so a lot of the songs are like that. It's like a point of view for something, or you know, Gelatinous Cube song is like that idea, that morality tale of it, of like this this monster that doesn't discriminate, just devours all, and this adventurer who is looking for, you know, that one treasure. And when they meet, it's like, you know, just that feeling of, man, I'd trade everything just to be out of here. You know, I was so like selfish, I was so greedy, I was so narrow-minded, just going after treasure, and now here I am, and none of it's worth anything if I could just get out of here. You know, that idea first sort of hit me, and then I built a song around it, because I think that's the player's position. You know, that's a lot of times that's when you're stuck in there, and who cares about treasure? My character's going to die. I'm going to, so it's very DM based, I think, the songwriting process for me.
Well, when we went through, I initially went through after Bardic Mystery Tour had suggested you, and that was the first song that I came across was Stuck in a Gelatinous Cube. And man, it was just so good. And I was like, this is really enjoyable. And then I went to the next song and it was about a Flumph. And I was like, Rebecca, oh my God, it's about a Flumph. You love Flumphs. Get in here. Get in here now. In regards to the old style that you've mentioned in Barrier Peak Songbook, I was going through and we did another campaign in a different setting called Paranoia, and Paranoia uses like that 1985 terrible technology all the way throughout it. You're controlled by a giant computer and everything is color coded. But yeah, I love that aesthetic as well. That ridiculous 1985, everything is too big. Everyone has to go through all these ridiculous checkpoints. The computers take up rooms. It's so much fun. I love that. And I was listening to Robot Police, and the Days Had a Number at that time. Oh man, just good stuff. Just so good.
Thanks. That's again like DM stuff. When you're, how am I going to differentiate the Robot Police from the androids that are like the workout android with the weights or whatever, which is so the android with the leotard, which is so funny. And so that point of view, like what would they be like, and the days had a number was also this idea of almost like 2001, the AI of the ship, but the AI remembers everything but is totally incapacitated. So this guilt-ridden AI that is malfunctioning, and he knows that it's his fault that the ship crashed and that the inhabitants died, and he's just there to, how he says he envies the living. He's just there to not die and just remember. So it all came from that DM type of perspective. If players have this encounter, what's the perspective of this character, and what are they going to learn here? What's the little jewel that they're going to take with them? And the best thing is when the players encounter that, right? When you're a DM and you prep the session, and then, man, sometimes they don't care and they go right when you want them to go left, but other times it really pays off, and there's nothing like that, and so I mean, the parallels to the stuff that I'm doing is, I almost feel like if you listen to my song, you sort of know what it would have been for me to DM that encounter for you, because I'm trying to not have it just be a generic stat block. I want there to be a personality and some chance for it to mean more than just that combat.
I was gonna.
No,
because I know I keep jumping on this. I didn't want to cut you off immediately.
No, I really like that. I love it. So many with how technology has advanced, and particularly in this last year with most people having to play online, a lot of people are realizing that using media, using music with RPGs is amazing. And I think that you've brought it to a totally different level of more than just storytelling, more than just world building with a song, if that makes sense. What did Lucas call it? Like third level?
I think that's what he third level D&D. So the first level is the interactions between just dice rolling. Then the second level is actually role playing, and then the third level is that level above it, the meta level, where you're thinking about it as something more than what it is. And I agree. I see that it's very nice to. There's a lot of layers to every song, and if you listen to it once, you're like, oh, that's a nice song. But then if you listen to it and you're reading along and you're hearing the lyrics and they're actually hitting differently, and you're like, wow, that's a very different song than when I first heard. And then you just think about it and you sit with it for a while, and I really enjoy that as well.
Yeah, I think that's I don't want to write a nothing song. I don't want to go down the monster manual and be like, okay, Roper or whatever it is, like, oh, who am I going to write about today? Black pudding or whatever. That I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And that's partly why I this new release that comes out next month is 6 songs that just came, and I thought that's like the idea of Hex and 6 songs. It was my attempt to stay in that inspiration zone, to stay in the place of things that I like and that are where I'm not working, I'm not straining to write something, because the truth is a lot of adventures, especially a lot of old school ones that are sort of the gonzo dungeons, you just go in and kill stuff and try not to die, and there's a big bad, like, there not too much differentiates them, but the ones that I picked, I thought, Tomb of Horrors. Oh,
Absolutely.
Sararak, you got that guy there, or you have Ravenloft. Hello, or Peak on the Borderlands. Keep on the Borderlands. I always confuse those when I don't stop and think. I always combine those. Keep on the Borderlands. The idea that in the middle of this craziness, there is one place. There's like a safe haven out on the frontier, and the people that go there are the people that are pushing the chaos back for civilization. That was inspirational to me. And I did look at, like, some of the, against the Giants and some of the other ones, but I'm like, oh my God, there's so much there. I'm not even going to go near some of those right now. Eventually maybe, but even though I really like him, I was like, Hamlet alone would like take up, so I thought, okay, I'm not gonna go there right now. But Dwellers, again, the UNT, love the UNT, big fan of the UNT. So yeah, each one of those, I thought, okay, I think I know what I can do with these songs, and they were inspirational. But when people saw that the next album is about modules, I started getting, oh, you got to do this one, you got to do this one, you got to do that one. And I'm afraid that sometimes I'm going to read it and be like, well, you may like it, but there's not like, it's almost like I've already written that song. You're in a dangerous place and there's a bad guy trying to kill you. That's that song, and there's only so many times you can rewrite that, that same song. So I really want to keep it in a place where it's still inspirational to me.
Well, I can't wait to hear what comes after that. I'm so excited to see who else inspired you to, and what modules they get through down the line. That'll be fun to see.
I'm actually working on stuff. I try to work ahead, so I'm already writing songs for the next thing after Hex, but it'll be, so the next thing I'm working on would be more of a homebrew type of thing. And I think that's the progression of a DM is, off the shelf, then you customize the off the shelf, and then you start introducing your own encounters and that's sort of where I'm going, I think.
I was going to say my D&D interaction was the exact opposite. I immediately went homebrew and then had to work my way back to actually just playing in a setting. I put in too much time early on.
No, I did do that too, actually. My first actual D&D, my first 5e game was homebrew, and I very quickly ran to the starter set, like weeping, yeah, for sure. I had this whole grand scheme, and I thought, okay, relax, because they don't know at the end of the day. And for me, I started playing with my friends, and I was the most experienced guy at the table, which is not saying much. So the expectations were super low. So I realized that I needed to put myself in a position where I could really over deliver for them so that they could get hooked. Then later I could get fancy,
So earlier you had said that you would listen to your dad's 60s psychedelic rock records. Are there any other like artists or specific sounds that you think have really like influenced you?
Yeah, for sure. I like a lot of different type of music, but for me, like the D&D is very tied to, for me, early metal. I was a big heavy metal fan when I was a kid, the Iron Maidens and bands like that. And it's also tied to like prog rock for me, like bands like Genesis or King Crimson. There's something about the mellotron as an instrument has just got this eeriness about it. It's, if like, I don't know, there's something about psychedelic rock, like that transports you. When I listen to certain, I don't know, even like a song like Strawberry Fields, it's, you listen to that song and there's so much atmosphere to it. You go to a place when you listen to that song, or I Am the Walrus. You go to a place when you hear that song, and it is different than the earlier Beatles songs, which are just about, let's rock. It's you listen to that stuff, and it's got that world building about it. Like this is the music that I would hear there, and so that's the stuff that's very evocative for me of D&D. And the range of music. I'm looking at the Barrier Peak songbook here. So I can see that all of these songs sort of have that how can I put it? Like, hopefully before the lyrics kick in, you have a sense of ambiance or atmosphere.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of stuff that I gravitate towards. That isn't always the kind of stuff I like to listen to, you know, like for instance, I like Bob Dylan enough. I like, but I don't always get that off of his music. I wouldn't necessarily write the songs that I'm writing in the style of Bob Dylan too much. You know, it's definitely, you know, but for somebody else it would. Like you said, you had somebody who's a rapper. You know, like that would never occur to me. I don't see that connection. That doesn't happen in my head. But it doesn't mean that it's not legitimate or cool or right. It's just not where I'm coming from. For me,
Yeah.
it's like those old paperback books from like, or those old album covers from the 60s or 70s that have some psychedelic trip or Frazetta covers or things like that. That's really evocative for me. And so I sort of wonder why, to be honest with you, I feel like somebody should have done it before. Like all those bands from the 70s or 80s, they were right there. They were right there. You know, you guys should have.
Zeppelin was on the cusp.
That's true.
Zeppelin did.
True.
What was it? My goodness, I
Lord
just
of the
drew a
Rings.
blank. Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings. Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, there are a few. I agree that there should have been a lot more D&D music at that time, but maybe it just wouldn't have sold the way that we think it would now. Because D&D, I guess, has gone through quite a renaissance.
Yeah, for sure. And I could see like, anyway, but for me, it's sort of stuck there, and maybe I'm stuck there, you know, but there's definitely types of instrumentation that I like. I like vintage synths. I like those late 70s, early 80s synths, or I like the Mellotron. I still like electric guitars. It's just in my sensibility, I guess, you know.
I felt a lot of that when I was listening to the albums, is that you could just lay down and just enjoy them just in a blacklight room and just have a good time. Yeah. It had all of those feels that I was like, no, yeah, playing D&D in the basement. Absolutely. This is that type of, yeah, just a nice journey.
I made some music that's just instrumental for a game that was released a couple weeks ago. This guy Lex Mandrake, who goes under the name Dank Dungeons, put out his own RPG called, I think he pronounces it Azag. I was pronouncing it Azag, but he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, would you like to make some music for my RPG?" And I think some other people might say, "What do you mean?" But I knew exactly what he meant, because that's where I'm at. Like some music that you could put on that would be of the world, that you and that's sort of the thing. That's the project that I'm working on. I'm writing some songs in a world where I'm going to make just a little RPG, just a small little thing. And so he reached out to me with, I was like, oh, I'm so busy. I'm working on my own stuff, but yes, like we are thinking of the same thing. Yes, I want to do it. So I gave him 5 songs. He gave me some of the fiction that he had people writing in that world, and I started to look at some of the art, and I gave him 5 instrumental songs that are available on Bandcamp through his Bandcamp site, and also his itch.io site. And I think, like, and I know that, there's another guy, who goes by the name, I think, Undead Spider Wizard, and he put out a vinyl with an album with his RPG release too. And like it's definitely not just my thing. I know that there's people, they've probably been doing it before I have, but it's very encouraging that that leap is so logical, because if you're playing a game, I know that people have their own playlists, of, oh, let's have the Lord of the Rings battle music, like this is a Helm's Deep moment or whatever it might be, but how cool to have music that was made by people who wrote it for that world you're playing in, right? That's sort of
They
what I'm going
actually
for.
did have a singular release for Dungeons and Dragons that was a CD in the Sharn City of Towers book for this Eberron campaign setting, where they actually released music for the setting, and that changed the game for me. Listening to that, just having something that was a quick reference that I could be like, man, I feel the aesthetics of the city and what you're
Yeah.
going for. It
Yeah.
has that tempo that I'm looking for, where it's not too slow, it's not too fast, it's just right there. Yeah, I agree that having people who know what they're doing releasing the music alongside it is just so nice.
It is, even if you keep it really low, so that it doesn't interfere with what you're doing or whatever. To me, music is magic. It's real magic. Music is absolutely magic, and you put music on, and you feel the magic happening to you. It changes the air around you. It changes your feelings. It changes the chemistry in your brain immediately. That's what music. That's the power of music, and it's really like this gentle, subtle magic that is every day for us. If you've had a terrible day and you lay down and you listen to some music, you are casting a spell that's going to change your reality. I feel very strongly about that, and so to be able to do that with gaming really creates that sort of, that we are now in a different place. We have entered a different place, and we are there together. We're experiencing it together by listening to this music together. And I don't think it should overtake what the players are doing, or what's happening at the table, but I think it can create that little bubble, that little space that pushes the world away for a little bit, right? So that you can create that, and that's super special to me, and that's why I feel like I got a lot of stuff to do in that space, because I'm still really inspired by it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I completely agree about music taking you away. I always get nervous when people seem to not enjoy music. That one always boggles my mind. How do you not like music? No matter what type of music it is, you have to like something, right? It's so unusual to meet people like that. I'm like, ugh. It's
Yeah,
the
it's a
one
bummer.
universal thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad. I feel bad. Like, everybody should have their secret little, oh, you've never heard this? That little, when you talk to someone and you get over the casual conversation and you really get into it. Oh, you've never heard The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway? Here, let me. In the old days, which, I'm dating myself, the next line would be, I'm going to make you a tape.
I'm going to make
You-
you a tape. I'm going to spend the time. I'm going to make you a tape. I will make sure you
Yes.
have it. Absolutely.
Right? And you would
Let
like
me burn this CD for
See,
you.
I did both.
Yeah.
I had the tape and CD. Absolutely. I was during the transition.
See, here I am, sweet baby me. For me, it was burn a CD, and then right around middle school to high school, for me, it was let me let you borrow my MP3 player.
Yeah.
Oh no, I wish. No, I had to sit in front. I'm sure you did as well. I had to sit there and listen to the radio and hope that the song I wanted to come on was going to come on if it was too new. If it was not out on an album, oh my god, that was just a nightmare.
Yeah, for sure. I had plenty of those tapes, but also just there's I do miss that I'm gonna make you a tape, because it's a huge time commitment, right? And you wouldn't just do it for anyone. But if you said that, like, okay, I'm gonna make you a tape, and that meant that I was gonna sit down and I was gonna count the duration of all the songs. I was gonna figure out what song went on what side in what order. I was gonna make sure I filled it with music on both sides, however, whatever it was, and I was gonna get the fine tip Sharpie, and I was going to write the name and the artist and then take another Sharpie with a different color and tell you a little something about this song, whatever it would be, like Eric Clapton does the solo on this or whatever, little tidbits I would put in there. And then I would give it to you, and then I would wait 2 weeks. And then I would say, okay, all right, so what did you think? And I would expect like that somebody would actually sit down and listen to it, and and that they would actually give it that time. I really I miss that, but at the same time I feel like vinyl is sort of taking up that space, that special space still. If you listen to vinyl, that means you're making the time to listen.
Oh yeah, vinyl is just the audio quality is just beautiful. The pops, that's what I'm in for.
The artifact also, like holding something that is like the connection to the music.
Well, I think you got a lot of that when you were making the tapes as well. Was not only did you get to choose, you got to choose what you put on there, but how it hit too.
Yeah.
When you stack the songs in a certain way, they flow so much better, and then that next song is enhanced by the song before it. Oh my goodness, I miss mixed CDs and tapes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the kids these days just make playlists,
and then you shuffle the playlist, and then you're missing the whole point.
Which is okay. Like I try not to be that guy, because I could be that guy with my kids a lot, and I try not to like diminish their experience in music, however they are. But I do feel that, I mean, it would take me a long time to make a mixtape. It was a special deal. So yeah, I don't know if that sort of gifting aspect of it is around anymore in that way.
And to physically hand people music, to put that music in their hands and give that to them, and remember that you're the one who showed them that's always a nice feeling too. I mean, introducing someone to a band is nice, but being the one who gave that to
yeah, for sure. I also remember like going over to friends' houses for a weekend, and I'd take blank tapes, because I'd be like, okay, you have this, I'm going to record that, or borrowing stuff and then returning it, knowing that I had then made a tape of everything,
And then if you had the ability to record yourself as well, then you could put little intros in. Oh man, I did that growing up as well, because we had a tape recorder where you would actually see. I was podcasting before I was podcasting.
Such a nerd.
Oh, wait, hold on a second. We're here in a podcast about Eberron. This is like that Spider-Man meme where Spider-Man points at himself. Like, this is, if you're trying to find nerds, you're in a room of mirrors here, because that's all there is.
Segue. Speaking of being a nerd,
I was going to say, speaking of Eberron, that's a good segue there too. Yeah.
So you had briefly mentioned Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Ooh.
Right? It was Dungeon.
It was Dungeon Crawl Classics. Yeah, no, I said, because I was
like
just thinking, man,
RPGs
we don't have that one, and that is one that I've wanted to play. Like, I've seen it played, and the aesthetic is so nice, but we haven't done it yet.
What other tabletop RPGs have you played, or would you like to play?
So I've played Dungeon Crawl Classics. I've played Mouse Guard. I really like Mouse Guard.
Oh,
Ooh,
Mouse Guard.
Mouse Guard's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really that was an easy one to teach myself. Actually, the book was really well written, and the mechanics with the dice pool and everything. I got that. I've actually played No Thank You Evil because at that time my kids were little, and I was trying to, which is a Monty Cook game for little kids. Um, but let's see, and in 5e I've played. In my gaming group, I'm part of a gaming group where I'm not so when pandemic hit, I stopped the game group that I was running because since they were all non-players, I was already having to count spell slots and tell people what their spells did. I wasn't then going to troubleshoot your headset USB mic. You know what I mean? I was like, enough.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah. And so, but I am part of a gaming group online with my friend Chris, who he's one of the co-hosts of the HP Podcraft, this HP Lovecraft literary podcast.
Ooh.
And we've been friends for a long time. And actually, I remember asking him about, because back then he was playing Vampire the Masquerade. This was like in the late 90s, maybe. Asking him about it. And he's like, oh, he sort of gave me the brush off thinking that I was going to tease him about playing RPGs, but really I was curious, that was a near miss for me. But anyway, here we are years later. And so with that gaming group, I've played, let's see, Forbidden Lands. We just played like a superhero codex type of game, Call of Cthulhu we played. And right now we're playing Tales from the Loop.
So Tales from the Loop. Oh my goodness, that's a great one.
It is great. And it has that great period vibe to it too, which I'm really enjoying it. So with that gaming group, it's all the guys in that group have way more experience than I do. Like they write games. They're all like really involved in the hobby. So I'm the straggler that doesn't know very much, but I benefit from their voracious appetite to move on and to have something new and to try other stuff. So through them, I'm always learning and playing new games. It's very cool. So yeah, so right now we're just doing Tales from the Loop, but which is very cool. But and we also played Alien too, which is horrifying. It was like my first horror RPG, and I never realized like how creeped out you could get playing.
Oh God, yeah, no,
yeah, real bad.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I totally got the creeps. What I was going to say about Dungeon Crawl Classics that I really like is the whole concept of the funnel. If you guys haven't played it, it's basically 0 level play. You generate like a handful of characters, and because they're all going to die, except for the one that doesn't, that becomes your character. So session 0 is there's like character generators online. You basically print out all these characters, cut out the sheets, just pass them out. You don't have to fall in love with any of them because this guy's a stable boy, this guy's a gong farmer, this guy's an innkeeper. None of them are heroes. There's nothing special about them. They're all villagers, and they're about to go in this underground ziggurat of some undead wizard, and they're all going to die except for the guy that doesn't. And now he's your character moving forward, and I really like that because you can have a table play right away, and you don't have this sense of every character being a precious little, your child that you have to protect. I spent like 3 days crafting this elf or whatever. It's just this guy he scoops horse crap all day. That's what this character is. That's all he does. And then at the end of it, you come out with a character, and then you level them up. And the other part of that I really like is the corruption. So if spells go bad, your wizard, you get corruption, and after a while, you end up really gnarly and hunched over and all. There's some mechanics like that I really dig. But yeah, I like that game a lot. It's got a good flavor to it as well.
See, I'm immediately worried because I connect to every character regardless of whether or not I'm supposed to. We played what was that? Death Monster Death
Kingdom Death Monster.
Kingdom Death Monster.
Which
and
is...
in that one, you're just supposed to grind up your characters. You're not supposed to have a connection to them. But I named them all, and then I immediately was like, oh no, he's my friend now. I'm going to keep him alive forever. Oh god, he's being snapped in half. Oh no.
Pity the boys and girls. The daddy's heart went cold and black. He turned down a road and there's no turning back. Forget the good times had. There'll be no better days ahead. You threw them away to stop the hands of time. Son of a bitch, it's not your fault. Daddy's gone bad. Daddy's gone bad. Son of a bitch, time marches on. Forget what you had. Forget what you had. He's buried in a cold phylactery. His days are damp and empty without end. No good to blame yourself. Better to live your life at ease and find your rest when the reaper calls your name. Son of a bitch, it's not your fault. Daddy's gone bad. Daddy's gone bad. Son of a bitch, time marches on. Forget what you had. Forget what you had.
So we have a couple of questions that we always do when we do the different interviews that we've done, regardless of how into D&D you are. We always ask these same questions. The first one is, if you could have one spell in your day-to-day life, what would it be?
It's, it's not, I haven't seen it in the player's handbook. I haven't seen it in it, but I often, this is something I tell my son, I wish I had the ability to give somebody instant diarrhea.
If you're listening in the TTRPG, oh my goodness, if you're listening in the TTRPG community, make that happen. Make instant diarrhea a spell. I don't know why it isn't. I agree. That is a great...
Because...
Listen, I know some people who do stuff on DM's Guild. We can make this happen.
Absolutely.
There you go. I just think there's something about, because I don't, magic is way too powerful, way too big a thing. I don't want invisibility. I don't want anything crazy like that. But sometimes there are people who deserve this. And if they had it, they wouldn't think it was magic. They wouldn't, they would think it's something that they did. So they wouldn't be like, I don't know, like any other spell that where people would see like, oh my god, you just dimension door or whatever it is, that would blow people's minds, or you misty stepped into here. All those are too flashy. Instant diarrhea is so low key, and I would just use it in the name of good. I wouldn't do it for evil. I would not do it for evil, but some people, like you're at home and there's some politician at a podium talking smack, and you just know this person is a sleazebag. You could cast instant diarrhea on them at the podium. Again, nobody would bat an eye, right? So that would be it.
See,
Can you tell I've spent some time thinking about this?
Yeah, I can definitely do so. Oh
I
my
work
gosh.
retail, and if this was something I could do, it would not be used for good.
Yeah, I was gonna
It
say
would entirely just
people
be
would
like,
just assume that
you're being horrible. You deserve diarrhea right now. Oh, that's a good one. That's a real good one.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to rethink my priorities because immediately I'm like, oh no, flashy, big and flashy. No, subtle. I think that's the way to go.
It's a good way to go.
Yeah.
If we release a DM's Guild supplement, that's all it is. It's just one page and it is instant diarrhea.
Look, it could help you. The jail guard. You're in prison. You give it. It could still help in D&D. It doesn't just have to help in the real world.
I imagine Wizards of the Coast would just make us stop at that point in time. They'd be like, we're going to ask you not to do the podcast anymore because you suggested this spell to us. We can't have this anymore.
They'd name it something nice. They loosen bowels or something. They would.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be instant diarrhea. They would call it something else.
Softened stool.
Yes.
Tummy troubles.
Lots of questions about that one.
There you go. They've got people who can come up with good names.
Yeah. So the second question we always ask is always a fun one. So in our podcast, something that we have done is we've introduced the concept of radio into the campaign setting of Eberron. If you could introduce anything into a typical fantasy setting, what would that thing be?
If I could introduce anything into a typical fantasy setting, just like your run-of-the-mill vanilla fantasy setting.
Yeah. As Tolkien-esque as you want it to be.
Let's see. Oh boy, now you might actually stump me with this one, but I want to come up with something. So let's see. If
it would help, we can say specifically Forgotten Realms. If that's the setting you typically play.
Yeah, if in the Forgotten Realm, I would give them a freeway so they could get the hell out of the Forgotten Realms and let's explore some of these other places that are there.
That is, yeah, absolutely.
So
100% back you on
I would
that one.
like to introduce a freeway into the Forgotten Realms. Yeah.
We're going to call that the Eberron Highway. You're
There
more
you
than
go.
welcome to just get on directly to...
There you go.
You can stop off at Spelljammer, rest stop.
So many other places.
Yeah, so I think, that's what it would be. It would be get the hell out of town and explore some of these other places.
So do you have a setting that you prefer? Is it Greyhawk?
I do like the vanilla fantasy settings, but I don't like when I DM. The last one I was starting to get into. Here I am talking smack about the Forgotten Realms, and I was going to be Waterdeep. But again, like my players don't know any better. I'm saying this more as a reader because I buy the books and I read them, I consume them, and so I want to know what else is there, what else is out there, and I've read I've gotten some of the older books, but I might be in the minority, but I think that like the people at Wizards now do a really good job putting books together.
Absolutely.
Trying to straighten out the lore of so many years, trying to sort of make it so that any type of table can play here, and customizable enough for your table, but at the same time trying to just clean out all the, retcon your way through all the backflips that have happened over time or whatever. So I do play sort of in a vanilla setting, but it's not like I don't run like a jokey table per se, but I do I do like to put my players into ridiculous, it's like social situations, like the guy that that you encounter was like is your ex-boyfriend, stuff like that. Like I like to put people into those situations, or I
Believe
had
I
a
got an
guy
RPG for you.
or I had a guy like a friend of mine, he was sort of being pursued by another man who had him. They wanted him to do something, so he asked him to pose for a portrait in exchange for whatever they wanted done, and it was legit. It was like, a beautiful portrait that he posed for. But when they went to Waterdeep, he found that this portrait was now being used to like advertise a male potency product. And so it was his face everywhere. Like those are the things that I like to do to my players. Like, so it isn't vanilla fantasy, but I like to really put them in awkward social situations. It's not very nice.
That's brilliant. No, I love any time that people take just that one step back, kind of like back when Acquisitions Incorporated had first started, and it really felt like, okay, here is your typical setting, and we're taking one step back because we're being just a little bit ridiculous with it.
Yeah,
and
I
not
really like
taking
that.
the setting too seriously.
I really like that. There's something about that I really, I mean, tongue in cheek, I think you have to be, it's ridiculous, it's very ridiculous. The game is ridiculous, playing is ridiculous, it's all very silly, and that's okay. Lean into that. I'm concerned when people take their gaming so seriously, which is like going back to my musical inspirations. Like that's one of the things I love about Iron Maiden. Like they're up there dancing, like playing this music with a sword and this big old like zombie guy Eddie, and they are getting a bigger kick out of it than anybody else is. They're not like, they know how ridiculous it is and they lean into it, how funny it is. It doesn't mean that they don't take their music seriously, but they also know that it's for a laugh. I really like that. You need that. I get bummed out when people, because when I first started to play, I did do some Adventures League games at my friendly local gaming store, and it bummed me out. Some people would be taking things so seriously, but I think it's just means you got to find the right table, I guess. And at my table, things are absurd. I like it that way.
I mean, I agree. Absurdity is the best part about D&D.
I was going to say that's the only realm I can play. We had a very serious game at one point in time, and it is actually the game I made Kevin for as the counterbalance because the DM was too serious, and I was like, I can't have that. I've got to be ridiculous and silly. And so every time he take a step towards serious, we got more and more ridiculous. He took it to, you can't. I don't want to play a game that feels like a slog constantly. I'm here for the fun.
Yeah, and I hate to say like that's not what D&D is or whatever, because that's not true. It's a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but for me, I need that. That aspect of it. Yeah,
entirely. Well, you have answered all of our absolutely absurd questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. This has been awesome.
Yeah. So if you wouldn't mind, please take a minute to
tell everyone about your new product coming out.
Give us your pitch. Tell everybody where they can find your stuff. All that good stuff.
Alrighty. So let's see. I have 2 albums on Bandcamp. There's the Random Encounters is the first one. The second one, the Barry Peak Songbook. Both of those are also on Spotify and Apple. They're streaming. So obviously Bandcamp is preferred for me, but I put them on Spotify also. So if you listen to them, I'm not mad. Go for it. I have a YouTube channel where I have videos for all of my songs except for one. So that's, look up Loot the Body on YouTube and you'll find that. And I have on the 4th of next month, this month is May, so I guess June 4th, I have a 6-song EP coming out on Bandcamp. It's called Hex Volume 1, and 6 songs, each one inspired by a classic module. I don't think I'll be able to remember them all right now, but I know that White Plume Mountain is one of them. I've got Dwellers of the Forbidden City. I've got Keep on the Borderlands in there. I've got Ravenloft. I've got Castle Amber and Tomb of Horrors. Hey, I did remember that.
Hey, you got it. Nice.
Look at that. So that's coming out. I'm really excited about that. I'm going to have videos for each one of those songs, and I'm really happy with how those came out. It's a little more hard rocking than my other stuff, than some of my last stuff, but yeah, I'm pretty proud of them. And then that's where I am now. And I'm writing new songs for a project to be named later.
Ooh, secret project.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Levi, for joining us. And everybody, genuinely, go to Bandcamp, check out his stuff, go to his YouTube, and flood him with likes and comments. Follow him on Twitter, all of the good stuff.
We'll also be adding his songs to our Spotify playlist that we have for Tiny Taverns. Please listen to that. You know, boost everybody. If you got a couple of minutes, play it in the background. Listen to it for fun and make sure everyone's benefiting.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Steve. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Again, it was an absolute pleasure.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.